it's Guido coming at you with a tactics talk, and we're going to talk about the TOG. No, we're not. We're not talking about the TOG. Sort of. We're going to sort of talk about the TOG. Good coffee, good coffee. Good morning. I hope you guys have a great day. It's a fine morning here. It just rained, so it's sun's come out. Nice, beautiful, just after the rain, kind of spring morning here. Fantastic. All right, what are we going to talk about? For reals, we're going to actually talk about Tier 6 heavies. What is the best Tier 6 heavy? Just like the title of the video said. And then we started yapping about TOGs. Well, the TOG might be in there. I think you're going to be a little bit surprised. Before I even looked at the stats, I had to sit down and think. And I thanked myself, what is the best? Sitting here without any other knowledge, just my impression of the best Tier 6 heavy. And I said, well, I bet it's the HT number 6. It could be maybe the 131, the German thing, I think the 3601, and maybe the M6. Those are the four I came up with. Now, I had forgotten about a couple of them because I wasn't looking in my garage when I did this. But my feelings, nothing more than were not even close. Not even close. And I think you're going to be a little bit surprised. I know I was. Maybe you won't be if you've played these recently. But we've got the TOG here. Now, the TOG's a terrible Tier 6, right? That's the legend. It's an awful tank. It's only for memes. Is it? Is it? Let's find out. Let's check this out because I think, like I said, you're going to be a little bit surprised as to what is going on here. Let's go ahead and crank this out just a little bit more. There we go. And we'll just give it a little over to the side. All right. So here we go. Tier 6, NA. We'll just stick with NA like I've been doing with these videos. And we will eventually get up to Tier 8, 9, 10 and take a look at that. But I thought I'd start down at Tier 6. I'm not that worried about 5 or less. We might get to that at some point. The reason I'm kind of starting here at the lower/mid tiers is to also kind of start learning a little more about the stats and what's going on here, because this whole idea of what the best is, I think, is interesting to me. So I am learning as I go as well as I delve into some of these stats. So the lower tiers have less tanks. There's a little less noise in the data and all that kind of good stuff down here. Realize at the end of the day, I have some objective numbers in front of me, but a lot of what I'm going to say is subjective. So you please disagree. If you disagree, chuck it down in the comments. Let me know what your favorite is. You know, I talked about it on the first video. See if I can remember how I sort of articulated it. But there's multiple kinds of best tanks. Objectively by the numbers, which is we're looking at here. Objectively/subjectively by good players to average players to bad players. When you start looking at tank curves, that starts to getting into feelings, and then we get down to individual likes and dislikes on whether you like it, perform better in it, overperform, don't care that it's the worst in the game, but you do well in it, all that good stuff. So we will sort of go over all of that, in my opinion, on what the best Tier 6 tank is. I haven't sorted by number of battles for a reason, because I didn't want to give away anything, but the Pollack is being ground right now. So I'm going to talk about a few things that I think chuck some extra noise in the data and maybe aren't quite representative of the tank potentially, because you'll notice right away its win rate is very low and its win rate is not great. So when we start sorting, this Pollack's going to drop down the bottom, but it's played by a whole bunch of people right now. It's a new tank, played by a whole bunch of people at mid tiers, where you tend to not have as good of players, or that's not true. Good players are down there. You just have more average to bad players as people are learning the game just by virtue of being low on experience. Not necessarily that you're ever, it's not that you might not be good or start to get good later on. It's right now, you've got a lot of people in the mid tiers who might be on their journey to greatness right there and currently not performing at that point. But in any event, that's a lot of battles. So I think it has been hurt by that. I don't think once we start racking and stacking, it's not really representative of how good this tank is. I'm not saying it's going to leapfrog to the front or anything, because what we found about the top ones, or what I found about the top ones, and you will pretty soon find, it was very interesting. There's a tank up there I would not have ever guessed. I would have never guessed. Actually, there's two. Let's get into that little journey. So let's do it, so to speak, by win 8. Boom. What the? What in the actual... The Tog's a terrible tank, man. It's awful. All right, let's talk about the Tog. Some of the other stats will kind of get into this as well. Win 8 is by damage. The Tog is an outlier. It has a ton of hit points. By that virtue, it sticks around longer than other tanks will and probably ends up getting more shots. Where it gets hurt is its speed and, of course, the giant size and the pinata sense of getting shot from everybody. And already, it does struggle with the win rate part. So this is partly because of the way the tank is designed, and it tends to be, in my opinion, kind of an outlier. So yes, a high win 8 because it can dump out some damage. Lower win 8 because of its other negatives right there. But from a pure number standpoint, it will crank out the best win 8 on average. Very interesting. And an okay amount of battles. It's not played by a whole bunch. The one that surprised me, the two that surprised me here are the Object 244 and the KV-2R. I forgot about both of those tanks. I didn't forget about the KV-2. Remember, though, the KV-2 is a tech tree tank, and it will be run in stock configurations or configurations less than perfect. And the KV-2 just comes to you with all the best KV-2-ness that you can get. Here, like I said, the 244 blew my mind. I had no idea it was that high. Tiger 131, that was one of my guesses. Tiger number 6 or HT number 6. There's the 3601. So I was actually kind of spot on those three ideas. I was not spot on this idea. The M6. He is in the basement, my friends. He is lurking around. Not as bad as a Churchill 7. That tank probably legitimately owns that spot in terms of win 8. It just isn't a great tank. Has a lot of limitations. The speed thing, like the Tog, but unlike the Tog, lacks the hit points, and the gun's not great. I mean, it's kind of miserable. Although, do they have the same gun? They might have the same gun. Pollack's down there, as we discussed. So that surprised me, and then you got the rest of the cats and dogs. Much like the other times we've delved into these numbers, you find a bunch of gold tanks, premium tanks up at the top. It's just kind of where we live right now. So let's sort it by win rate, because some things are going to change here. 244 jumps up to the number 1 spot. KV-2 follows it up to the number 2 spot. We got the OI making an appearance in the numbers, and there's that 3601, Tiger 131, and HT number 6 hanging around, and then the Tog drops down pretty fast in the win rate for the reasons that we talked about. And I'm going to keep talking about it, the 244, how much it surprised me. Let's also, though, caveat that with it has the perfect number of battles, 69. That's actually pretty funny. That is not many battles, and because of the way you got that, this can be probably classified as one of those tanks that, on average, the players are better that play it. Those that do, and there's not very many. KV-2, though, pretty good number of battles, legitimately battling it out for number 1 with 39,000 battles. So let's jump into DPG. There's the 244, takes the 1 spot. KV-2R follows up. We got the Tog sitting at 3rd. Reference the fact that it has all the hit points and sticks around in battles longer, so its damage is pretty good. We go to frags. We have a similar situation, although the KV-2 now edges out the 244, takes the number 1 spot in frags, and some of the usual suspects, KV-2 and OI, are still lurking around the Tog, like I said, around the top, and the Tiger in the 3601 right in the middle, and of course all the rest of the cats and dogs right there. Go damage ratio, KV-2R, we're talking about that big derp gun. This is the last 60 days, so it's after the HE nerf. That's pretty good information, actually, so apparently it's holding its own still after the HE nerf. Its brother, the KV-2 on the tech tree, is lurking around in all of these stats, and the 244 takes the 2nd spot. Get to kill the death. This is getting into, again, the Tog with its extra hit points and ability to stick around. The 2 tanks we've been talking about as 1 and 2. And then for survival, there's all those hit points working out for the Tog too. But still, the KV-2R and the 244 end up surviving pretty well. So I found this to be kind of interesting, and that's why I wanted to do the video on it. And I like that I don't look at these at least until right before, try to formulate my opinion. So my opinion was the HT number 6, the Tiger 131, the M6, and the 3601H, and I was pretty well off base. I didn't really hit any of them in my feelings, right? My thoughts on that. I happen to do well in the 244. I have played it. When I think about it, because it's just not a tank I kind of remember, when I think about it, I do remember doing pretty well and being surprised by how well I did it. The TOG I've always liked, pretty much always liked the TOG. I've always felt like it was much better than people give it credit for. And I think the numbers bear that out. It's a pretty darn good Tier 6 heavy tank. It just is. You can individually not like it because of its speed and the play style. What I think you can't say is that in the current meta it's trash, because it isn't. This is the last 60 days. So objectively a pretty good tank. Okay, so sitting there at the 1.8. That's the TOG. KV2R, I don't have it. I have the KV2 there's 18 Tier 6 heavy tanks. I have 14 of them. I don't own the Tiger 131, which is essentially the same as the HT number 6, and I don't own the KV2R, which is essentially the same as the KV. Those are two of the few tanks I don't own. All right. Tiger 131 is doing okay in Win 8. I like the number 6. I did pretty well in it, and I've always liked the 3601. The 3601, I believe, was a medium at one point, so it's got some things that have been going on with it. Although this is, again, last 60 days, so this configuration has been around for a while, and certainly within the last 60 days, there's no change. So we go to win rate, the 244, doing well. The KV2, that's played by a lot more players. Now they got the OI creeping in there. He kind of makes a dash for number 3 in terms of win rate. And a lot of people play the OI actually at 90,000, so you had a lot of people playing that thing. Doing pretty well with that, and then the 3601. Get over to DPG, 244, KV2R, TOG2. Exactly as I was talking about. This 244 and KV2 and the TOG are all vying for it. So let's go through it really quickly and see if we can come up with what we think is the top. I'm going to leave the 244 in the running. We won't discount it just for its battles. In this case, it's kind of mid-tier down here. So let's just see which one's really going to take it. Because I think it's between the 244, KV2R, and TOG3 for the best Tier 6 heavy tank. So win 8. Okay, all 3 of them. We go to win rate. The TOG falls out for probably pretty good reasons. We go to DPG. There they are, 1, 2, and 3. I think the T44 or the 244 is really winning right now between those 3. It's either 1 or 2 on all of those. And the TOG is kind of struggle bussing. A little bit of a swap here, 244, the TOG in 3rd. The TOG falls out on damage ratio. Why? Because it has so many hit points. So it's going to have a hard time doing a bunch of damage when it's got, I think it's 1,500 hit points and it's only averaging 834. These guys have less hit points. So we can kind of discount this in terms of the TOG. Kill to death, it's number 3, survival, 244 down to 3rd, KV2R, and spots. So if I was pinned against the wall here, I am going to go with the KV2R being the best Tier 6 heavy tank, with I think a close second by the Object 244 and a dark horse 3rd by the TOG 2. The numbers show that. I like all 3 of these tanks. It's the KV2 that I play, but the R is pretty much the same. I like all 3 of these tanks. They all 3 do well at Tier 6. I think they're all contenders for number 1 right there, but I think the KV2R kind of comes out ahead in general. We start doing damage and things here, kills to death, all that good stuff, survival, and its win rate is solid at number 2, 52%, and the only thing it really suffers is win 8, down at 1385. Some of that is probably related to the derping mechanic or the HE mechanic right there. So let me know what you guys think. I'm calling it the KV2R. I could be convinced the 244. I'm kind of putting it at a close second based on not many people have it. Let me just screw that up. Based on not many people have it, and it's only played what 69 in there. It's not played that much. So the KV2 has it. KV2R, or you really could go KV2R/KV2. The KV2's numbers itself are limited by the fact that it is played stock and people have to grind it. So it's really kind of the same tank. And those are the things, as you look through those numbers, you got to kind of keep in mind. You've got the objective numbers, but there's always the caveats and the details, right? The devil's in the details. Let me know what you think. What, in your opinion, is the number 1 Tier 6 heavy tank? So let's go ahead and just put the KV2 up, even though that's not the KV2R. There she is. Number 1, KV2R. That's all I've got. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you.